Can you name the 4 Canadians in the WNBA?
Oh, Kia Nurse,
Natalie.
Bridget Carlton.
It's one more.
Bum, bum, bum.
I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. She just got drafted this year.
How? No, she's not.
She's Australian.
Yeah. Ah!
She just got drafted.
Dream. Yeah.
Letitia, Emma here.
Oh man!
Hey everybody, welcome back to Careers on Point. It's been a hot minute. I have been in Europe on a family vacation. I'm still here, but I've had a little bit of time, a little bit of off time to do some content, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. You just saw the video of the Chicago Sky players trying to name all the Canadians that are currently playing in the W. That was from the Canadian preseason game back in May, and I was doing a bit of a fun Canadian trivia with them at practice, and I thought that it was really funny that a lot of them could list off like Kia Nurse, Bridget Carlton right off the bat, Natalie Achanwa, and Letitia Amahir was kind of the hardest one. She was the newest Canadian to be drafted, so that's totally fine that the players didn't get that. I did get a request to make a video on the Canadian players in the W, and I thought that since I had asked the Chicago Sky players back in May about that, then maybe I could provide a little bit more detail in this video on the Canadian players in W to just kind of expand and let people know that, hey, like we're here. There's going to be more Canadians as the league continues to grow, as women's basketball continues to grow in Canada, in the world. So yeah, let's get into it. Originally from Hamilton, Ontario, Kia Nurse has been in the WNBA for 5 years. The point guard went to UConn and was selected 10th overall by the New York Liberty in 2018. She's on her third WNBA team with the Seattle Storm after playing most recently for the Phoenix Mercury. Nurse has been an integral part of the Canadian national team and also plays a role on TSN broadcast in Canada covering the Toronto Raptors. She's solidified her Canadian status, and it's made her one of the most recognizable Canadians in the W. To me, Kia Nurse's performance and success and everything like that has always amounted to opportunity and the situation around the team that she's been on. She was with the New York Liberty for the longest time in terms of all the teams she's been on, and they were kind of going through rocky phases. They weren't very good. It was when they got the #1 pick, they drafted Sabrina, and then Kia got traded to the Phoenix Mercury. And then with the Mercury, she started to find her groove a little bit, but then she got injured and she was out for a year, which really, really sucked. But it was great to see her back in the court. Obviously, is in Seattle now. It'll be interesting to see how Kia continues to carve out her roles because she has been in the WNBA now for 5 years, so she is considered to be a vet, I think, at least. So yeah, that is our first Canadian on the list. The most recognizable one, the one that all the Chicago players said first. We all know Kia's Canadian. She's very proud about it, and we love her as well on the CSN broadcast here. That's actually something that's super underrated that I do want to touch on for a little bit. Athletes that are currently playing in a professional league and also doing broadcasting while they're not playing, I think has been really instrumental for giving more opportunity to women's basketball players, because we've seen players like Kia, we've seen players like Shanae Ogumake, Candace Parker, all these players who are started to kind of dip into their broadcasting bag a little bit, and they bring another element to broadcast, another element of just knowing basketball a little bit better. Yes, we get a lot of former players on broadcast, such as like Charles Barkley, Shaq, and all those things, but there's something different when you get a current player. Experiencing the latest trends of basketball, the way that the game is changing and growing, they're in the know. They know what's going on and they know what players are going through, and I think that they just bring an extra element to the broadcast. So that's something that goes a little bit underrated, I feel like, and those of us who live in Canada and have watched Kia on the TSN broadcast, not only has she brought a great element to speaking about the Toronto Raptors and the NBA, but she's also brought more awareness to the WNBA, because when she gets introduced on those broadcasts, she gets introduced as Kia Nurse, player for the Seattle Storm, player for the Phoenix Mercury, plays in the WNBA, member of the Canadian national team. So I think all of that together has just brought, it's just a great way to bring more awareness to the game of basketball and to get more people involved in the WNBA who have been NBA fans and would like to branch out into more areas of basketball. All right, these next two Canadians are actually teammates, so let's discuss them together. Natalie Achonwa and Bridget Carleton both play for the Minnesota Lynx, with Achonwa being from Toronto, Ontario, and Carleton being from Chatham, Ontario. The Lynx were one of the two teams that played a preseason game in Toronto back in May against the Chicago Sky, as we previously saw. They were both at the forefront of that weekend, especially Bridget Carleton, who I remember when we were doing media with her, she could not stop smiling. She got into that press room, she saw like the 30 plus media members that were there, and I don't think she stopped smiling the entire time that we were asking her questions, which was really cool to see, because she was just like in her environment. She felt at home. She did during the actual game, she addressed the crowd, and I just thought that it was extremely meaningful to her as a player, just to see, and it's something that she kind of talked about a little bit, where growing up, she didn't really see Canadians playing in the W. She wasn't really exposed to the WNBA as much as you would be as if you were living in the United States. And so having this preseason game being in Canada, she really talked about how important that was, because little girls are able to watch it and see that, like, hey, maybe I can be a professional basketball player one day, and maybe I can play in the WNBA one day. So it was really cool to get that perspective from her and just bring more awareness to the Canadian women's basketball, because there is a lot of talent here, and I think that it's just getting bigger and growing, especially at the grassroots level, as more resources are being put into it. And I think that preseason game in Canada was a big thing and clearly meant a lot to Bridget Carleton and Natalie Achonwa, who's currently out on mat leave. But these are two players. Natalie Achonwa also has done broadcasts for Sportsnet whenever they do Global Jam or FIBA or any kind of like other women's basketball events. Natalie Achonwa is on the Sportsnet team to do broadcasting. And that kind of ties into what I was talking about with Kia, where having these players come on to do these broadcasts on a consistent and regular basis is also going to bring more eyes to the WNBA and more eyes on women's basketball in general. So I just think it's great what these two are doing and the kind of attention that they've brought this year to women's basketball as well as women's basketball in Canada, because they are Canadian. And I think, like I kind of harped on before, there's a little bit of a pride that comes with that too, especially when there's so little of us. There's no WNBA team. So like that one preseason game, the entire country rallied around it, because Canada knows how to rally around one team or one thing. Because obviously the Raptors are the only NBA team in Canada, and the entire country rallies around them. So it's kind of just this Canadian common thing where you know how special something is in basketball, and Canadians just love basketball, and so they really rally around it super easily. But the Minnesota Lynx, let's take it back to them, because Natalie and Bridget are both on that team, with Bridget Carleton being the one who's currently playing. But they've kind of struggled a little bit in the post Sylvia Fowles era, but they started to turn a little bit of a corner. They've played really well in the last 4 weeks, so in the last month, and I think they're going to make a playoff push. I think they're good enough. Nafisa Collier on that team is definitely in MVP talks, and I think they've gone like 6-4 in their last 10 or something like that, and yeah. So Bridget Carleton, Natalie Achonwa, Minnesota Lynx. There you go. 2 more Canadians. All right. The fourth Canadian in the W, the player that a lot of the Sky players had trouble with naming, because she is the newest member of the WNBA on the Canadian side. That's Letitia Amahir of the Atlanta Dream. She's 22 years old from Mississauga, Ontario, and she was selected 8th overall this year by the Dream. And the Dream were kind of the team of the draft, outside of the Indiana Fever drafting Aaliyah Boston, Grace Berger, all that. But the Atlanta Dream really were the team of the draft, drafting Haley Jones and Letitia Amahir. And it was super cool to see a Canadian get drafted that high again. And like, for those who don't know, like, Amahir's had some impressive basketball additions to her resume, in her life, including being on the Canadian Olympic team in 2021 and playing for the South Carolina Gamecocks in college, where she won the NCAA championship with them in 2022. So she's got a lot of basketball on her resume, and obviously a great pick by the Atlanta Dream. Would like to see more playing time for her. She hasn't gotten that much this year, but I think once she starts to get a little bit more minutes, and you can start to see more of her in her game and what she brings to the table. But yeah, she's the fourth Canadian in W. We've gone from 3 to 4. Woo, amazing. Let's go. Hopefully there'll be many more to come in the future. I'm trying to think of like names that are kind of happening right now who are younger, like Toby Fournier is one of them who will be up and coming in the next several years. Aaliyah Edwards being another name. She plays for UConn. There's a lot of Canadians in NCAA basketball right now in Canada who are going to be WNBA players one day, and the number is going to go from 4 to maybe 10 and even more. But yeah, those are the Canadians in the WNBA. I hope you learned a little bit more about them and where they come from and all the things that they do, not only in basketball, but outside of basketball as well. If you stuck around to the end with me, thank you very much. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to Crease on Point, and subscribe to my Patreon as well. Any support goes towards helping me continue to make content on my own, as I do not have a main income. I'm still in Europe right now. Should be back home in about 10 days, in which I'll be in Toronto for 3 days before I'm on the road again, because I will be going to Montreal for the National Bank Open from August 6th to 13. I'll be working with Sportsnet as their center court statistician. I did that with them last year in Toronto. I'm remaining on the women's broadcast, so the women are playing in Montreal this year, which means I will be in Montreal this year. So we'll see how much content I can bring you guys during that time, because I will be working long hours, but probably it'll be more like vlogging and behind the scenes content. Definitely gonna get some fits off. That's what's coming up for me. I hope you enjoyed this video on the Canadians in the W. Let me know what else you guys would like to see, because I made this video purely off of a request. So yeah, let me know what you want to see, whether it's WNBA, NBA, tennis related, anything goes, and I will do my best to make a video on it. Thank you so much for supporting me. Follow me on Twitter at CrinaMM or on Instagram at Crina Mustafa for more updates and all that. Bye.